All right. So, like we mentioned a few minutes ago, Mike is out in the fields. He's talking with various breweries about an upcoming project for Rockland Music Fest 12 coming this summer. And we want to update you on a few stories that are happening right now. First of all, most importantly, the power outage that occurred in West Point and the town of Highlands is largely behind us. There were residents that were affected up until 11:30 a.m. this morning. Approximately 3,000 homes were affected at the peak. Full restoration was around 11:30, so we're good to go on that. And thanks for joining us today on AM Rockland's News. I'm your host, Tom Osa, and let's get into some of the other items that we have in the list here, which is basically what's happened over the last several months. News is coming in pretty quickly, so we just want to get it out there, report it as factually as possible, and let you make informed decisions. In addition to the West Point power outage, I just want to mention that the Stony Point Seals polar plunge is still going on with wind chills below zero. The 27th annual Stony Point Seals polar plunge was held on Super Bowl Sunday, raised funds for local children with significant medical challenges. Over 100 costumed participants, including a penguin that was running around, braved the cold in the parade, although no one entered the water due to the fact that there was approximately a foot and a half of ice by the shore. So, unless you had wings, you couldn't get in the water. But still, the event drew nearly 750 supporters and continued a 27-year tradition that has raised over $1 million since 1999. Stony Point Seals president John Fox summed it up. It's not about the cold, it is about the community. And you can learn more about the children that are being donated to this year. You can go to stonypointseals.com. But we want to switch gears a little bit. We have a guest on with us. Her name is Elsie. As I mentioned in our previous segment, we have come across some information about a local residential housing facility that seems, at least according to what we've heard from numerous sources at this point, some substandard conditions that may be happening over there. So, Elsie, thank you for joining us on Rockland's News this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So, perhaps you could tell us what's going on. If you could just tell us about the name of the facility and, from your perspective as a person that has been a resident over there, what's been going on over the last year?
So I'm or was a tenant of Admiral's Cove in Haverstraw. It is right next door to the harbors. I remember like growing up and everyone talking about how nice they were. So obviously, when I was looking at apartments, I decided to go look over there and ended up leasing with them. For the most part, because I work as much as I do, I don't spend as much time in my apartment, but I started to see things slowly as time went on. And once I did, I obviously reached out to management and wasn't getting much responses. So I had mold. I found mold in my apartment, and I like obviously was alarmed because I had never lived with mold, lived with my parents, lived in the city, lived in a bunch of different places, never had mold. I alerted the facility about it, property management. They did not respond to me once I put it in as a work order. It only when I basically told them that, hey, I'm going to be leaving because I cannot live with mold, did they decide to reach out to me. So once they reached out to me, it was like numerous phone calls saying that I need to let them into my apartment now because they need to go and fix it. I said basically, like, if you're just going to be cleaning it up, I'd prefer to wait until someone actually comes and tests it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want someone to just scrub over it, basically. They
Right.
refused to let me do that. And they came in while I was at work and basically scrubbed it off with bleach and spray painted over it, and basically said because they were able to do that, that it must have been my cleaning skills that had caused it. And they proceeded to also say that I needed to be running the fan in my bathroom for an hour after showering. Mind you, the window was like across my apartment, nowhere near my bathroom.
Okay.
And that I needed to be buying some industrial cleaner to clean it up. it just didn't sound right to me. And I was wondering, like, if I had that problem, who else might have had that problem?
Right.
So I kind of went down a rabbit hole and realized that it wasn't just me. There were numerous tenants previous and past who had dealt with mold, and that they basically had the same kind of I like responses to them, that they needed to do all these different things and that it was their fault.
Interesting.
Um yeah, when I ended up like writing a Google review to say that like that's the hazard we were like living with, they basically berated me and were like it had to be my cleaning and that I was blackmailing them and that's the only reason why I was saying anything.
Now, if I
And
can ask this, so when you say they, I just want to just clarify because you mentioned about property management.
yeah.
There's a company that runs it. So this is the property management facility that was saying this back to you.
Yes. So they like when they respond back to you, they'll do it under like the name of the group, which is like Admiral's Cove by GDC, but it's the
Right.
like in-house property management, like Mark and Kelly, they like yeah. They'll respond to you and tell you though that that's the reason why you're dealing with those things is because of your negligence in cleaning.
Okay. And just to clarify, when people came through the facility for through your residence, were these qualified mold
Not at
remediators?
all. It was the same woman that I had seen cleaning our hallways on a daily basis was the same person that they had coming to scrub down the mold. And
And
that was my big concern when I had told them I didn't want them coming and clean it up because they specified that it wouldn't be like a mold remediation company.
right. And the type of mold that we're speaking of, and again, for those of you that are listening in on this via Rockland's News, there has been corroboration with several other sources, and we're going to have them on the air. This is the tip of the spear right here. But what type of mold are we talking about? Because there's various types of mold.
So I know one girl has like a ridiculous amount of black mold. They obviously when they scrubbed up the mold in my apartment, because of that I wasn't able to get that tested.
Right.
But the two species that they were able to find in my bedroom were two that could cause like asthma attacks. And as someone with asthma, and it was literally in my windowsill right next to my bed. I
Hmm.
just didn't feel safe, but
And
I will never know what kind of mold was on the windowsill because they had scrubbed it and gotten rid of the evidence before my person could come in to test it.
gotcha. Okay. Now, from what I understand, there's pictures of all of this that's been documented from
Yeah.
various residents.
Right. I have various pictures of like before and after them spray painting. Then in my actual bedroom window because they weren't able to get and do that. And then of just my belongings with mold all over them. I like in the apartment there's like a walk-in closet which is nowhere near the window. It's a closed door in the corner. Like my heels are completely covered in mold.
Mm-hmm. Geez,
Yeah.
sorry that's happening. That's pretty rough. I mean, not just from a material side of the coin, but obviously from a health side of the coin as well. You've had a variety of interactions with the residents, and again, we've spoken with several of them off the record up until this point. What has been, from your perspective, the pattern of the property management company? You mentioned about Google reviews. So it seems like there's a reaction from the corporate entity and or the property management. Is there a consistent pattern of
Yeah.
response by the company?
So the response usually like, and it's a known fact, like it's actually laughable at this point because everybody knows that the way to get out of your lease or get out of those conditions is you have to write an unfavorable Google review. Then a day or two later, the property manager will reach out to you and be like, let's make a deal, and
Hmm.
essentially tell you that if you take down your bad or negative Google review, they will let you out of your lease or they will put you in another apartment. They will offer you different things. They'll like put you in a new apartment, like a bigger one. Like they will offer you all these different things to basically get you to be quiet.
Hmm. Interesting. And that also is something that's happening regardless of the condition of the property from what you're telling me, you mentioned a word that raised my eyebrows during our conversation offline, and the condition of the property ultimately, several units were deemed. What was the word you used?
Uninhabitable.
And for those of you that happen to have a law degree and are listening in on this, you can certainly understand the weight of that particular term. And yeah, this is going to be a pattern that we're going to be following up on over the next several weeks. Um, if I can ask you this, certainly, it sounds like you've made it out of there, and you're able to look at this in hindsight now. How many generally residents are at Admiral's Cove at this point? I don't have the numbers in front of me.
I feel like I read a number the other day and it was something like between like 300 and 400. But if you also look on just like going on the site, they have a ridiculous amount of open like apartments
Yeah,
right
I'm looking
now.
now.
Yeah. And I think it is because as a community, we are letting people know, like those of us who've been there, we are letting people know, do not go. You
Hmm.
will regret it. It is a waste of your money. It is not safe.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's a very nice website, but that doesn't necessarily speak to the current conditions.
Right.
At least according to the website, they got awards in like 2020 all the way to 2023, but it's now 2026, and certainly things can change in a short period of time. What do you think that could happen? I guess if enough people that are suffering through these conditions, and we're going to follow up with other people to be on this live stream on Rockland's News. But what can they do in order to get some sort of remediation or some restitution for what they've experienced thus far?
I kind of like obviously I don't think that they're like a good management company, a good development company or anything like that, but I also want to see Rockland County kind of take some responsibility in the sense of like numerous residents have reached out to the health department, to the building inspector in the town, and they all acknowledge that the facilities are not good, that they've gotten complaints from multiple residents. If that's the case, why has nothing been done?
Hmm.
Like I would just like to know why nothing has been done, why people are being made to feel like they have to stay in these uninhabitable conditions.
Hmm.
What exactly, like, why? Like, what is the thing behind there? What pull do they have that is making, like, I guess officials or whoever think that they don't have to basically look into it and that people just basically are stuck?
Yeah, and it's this is happening at an interesting time where there's already a deficit of housing units, as it's been widely reported. Not just from us, but from multiple news sources. I mean, even throughout local governments, about 7,000 units in terms of deficit of residential housing units that really need to be built or provided for. And the more units, obviously, the lower the cost to the resident, and obviously, progress over time. It's not my area as real estate, but it seems to me that this time, the time that's occurring right now, where you have a deficit of housing units plus your previous slew of housing is starting to show up with some substandard conditions, that is certainly a cause for concern. That could cause that number to rise up to 10,000, 20,000 if the properties were not maintained the right way over the last 5 years.
Right.
So it is a challenge. Well, Elsie, we appreciate you being on the air to talk about this. We will also be following up, and as again for those of you that are listening, we've been following up on this story very quietly in the background with our contacts. We certainly don't want to burn anybody's information, but we can confirm that this is happening over at Admiral's Cove at this point. We got pictures, video, and we also have eyewitness accounts. So we will be mentioning some more. And Elsie, once again, we'll be in touch with you, but we want to thank you for being on AM Rockland's News this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you got it. All right, so we're going to end with that. We're going to be back with Town of Haverstraw Supervisor Howard Phillips to talk about some things that are happening in the town of Haverstraw over the next 5 or 10 minutes. We'll be back at 4 o'clock today. And let's just end with our sponsors. Once again, Elsie, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
So our Rockland News podcast is sponsored by our friends at Yabu Fence Company, Dana Pest Control in Tompkins Cove, New York, Easy Temp for all your ice machine repairs and commercial refrigeration. We also got our friends over at Kobe Sushi with their Jazz Music Lounge, music on Wednesdays and Saturday nights. Susan Bova from Coldwell Banker Realty, Whole Shot Bagels located in Haverstraw, New York. 99 Signs. Ladies and gentlemen, a business without a sign is a sign of no business. Get your digital signs, your lawn signs, and your billboards at 99signs.com. FZ Perfection Auto Body Repair, Clean Space Maintenance Management Company, and the New York Boulders baseball team. We'll be back in a few minutes with our next guest, Howard Phillips. Take care.